And Mohammed was there, and Martin and Gary were there, and I told them, and they went, "Oh well, never mind, we'll just have to get on with it, won't we?" And it was like that kind of attitude which helped me to get beyond. So it wasn't a case of that the world's going to end, because there was life. I've met a couple of other people who were positive, and I think while I was doing therapy and I was working with positive people, what I got from that was how not to be. I saw common threads with lots of people, and while I was helping them to solve problems, I was getting answers for myself of how I was going to resolve my things. What worked with me, what worked with somebody else, what might work with that person, how that person could approach certain things. And some of the kind of similar problems that they were having with their identities, who they were, in a sense, the status became more important than the person. So it kept me in check a lot of the times while I was doing that. And I think that's what made me a lot stronger. So from that, again, I was probably one of the first in-house therapists within the charity on a voluntary basis. So we started off with essential starter kits, basically, and that's because we've got Millennium funding to be able to train people in aromatherapy. And there was myself and a couple of other people that actually went onto the training. So I qualified in aromatherapy, and I also qualified in reflexology. When we had new students coming in who were on part of the training schemes, we were able to mentor them as well, so which was actually really nice. And some of them were clients, actually came in as clients, and have been working with them for a long time. One in particular, I remember, we were talking about probably about 9 years of working with that person. Constant therapy with that person, supportive therapy and everything else, and to get them where they were, to the point where they actually wanted to make changes, which was actually really nice, which were life-affirming changes. So that took us into a very different area as well, and gave me a lot more confidence about what I was doing while training other people. So, and then went off and started doing my own thing. So I had my own little private practice, which I did outside, and then came into the charity and did that. And then I went into mainstream work. It's kind of set me up to go back into work, and not looking at the status as a major problem. It wasn't an issue. It wasn't going to affect anybody else. So it kind of gave me that strength. And where I had problems adjusting to certain things, what I had problems with was issues around identity, of being a dual nationality in a sense. Not so much about being brought up in a West Indian environment, but being half Asian. So that was a big problem for me because of my background and how the attitudes of people towards it. And I remember that we did a fundraising one day. We was out in town collecting money for Mercury Phoenix Trust. And this guy, I kind of almost went ballistic. Just the attitude. This guy, first thing in the morning, it was early in the morning, like 9 o'clock in the morning, and the worst thing that anybody could turn around and say was they deserve it, they bought it on themselves. And this was very ignorant, and it kind of opened my eyes up even more so to the level of ignorance that was out there, and how we could get across to people, and how we supported people with that. Even through like nursing and stuff like that. So I went in the EMB course as well, we got funding for that. Went on to the EMB 396, I think it was, or 356, which is, was set up for nursing and midwifery of people with HIV and AIDS. And it was really basically opened up for the nursing staff, but we managed to get onto it. And there was myself, an acupuncturist, and a client. The client drops out after about a week, 2 weeks into it. Then the therapist actually dropped out after. And then I completed my part, but we had to do a thesis after. And with this thesis, you had to have beginning, a middle, and an end. Well, I'd had a beginning, and for some reason I'd cut out this chunk of the middle and went straight to the end. And I got it handed back to me after and said, well, actually there's a piece missing out of this. So I had to redo it. And what I actually recognised from when I was doing it was that the reason why I'd missed out this midsection was all about my feeling, the journey, about being positive, and what it brought up for me, the whole course, what it brought up for me on an emotional level. So when I handed it back in, the lady who was actually doing the course was like sat there, like kind of shocked. Not shocked at the fact that I was positive, but the fact that the emotions that it had raised and the attitudes, what I'd found because of working with some of the nurses. And I actually was quite, I suppose, when you look at nursing and people who are nursing positive people or people with AIDS, you'd think that they'd be a caring nature. But actually, it's actually quite the opposite. Not all of them, but some of them still have an attitude about it. And at that time, we're talking in 93, 94, there was still a lot of stigma around it. There still is stigma around it, but there was a hell of a lot more stigma around it at that time. So you kind of felt isolated in some respects. Then I got ill. Let me think, it was 1999, it was about 1999, I became ill, developed candidiasis of the esophagus and intestinal tract. And so basically what this did was actually, I could eat and everything, but it blocked any absorption. So I started to lose weight, and I lost a lot of weight, and to the point I actually was withdrawing. It was almost like your body was closing down. And when they did my blood test, everything else was fine, apart from my CD4 count. And what they recognised, that there was something else going on here. It wasn't just about this. And there was a lot of emotional stuff that actually was going on with me, which I actually hadn't processed. About speaking out, speaking my mind, and feeling free to speak about things that I wanted to speak about, or challenging certain things. So it was a case of like, hold your tongue, that kind of attitude, because we need those people, and you can't say anything to upset them. Well, actually, when I became better, that changed. It's almost like brought myself back from the brink, and I had a lot of support as well, from like Gary, Mohammed, Michael, Dr. Lee as well from that, and it was quite distressing for them. But it was also distressing for me, because I'd realised this is what I've allowed myself to do. So I learned a lesson from that, not to allow people to push you into that kind of scenario, but speak freely, speak strongly. And that is what the charity was trying to do in the first place, but it's how you internalise it all. And you start to recognise that there's a lot more that goes deeper, and by actually dealing with the deeper stuff, you actually free yourself up to be able to move forward through life. So you don't repeat some of the same things. It's not to say it's not going to happen again, but it doesn't affect you in the same way. You don't become beholden to it, if that makes any sense. So from there, I then went into mainstream work, into the statutory sector. I went back and started to do care, which I started off in 1986. And I actually finished this time. I got my MVQ3, and then went on to train up to be a deputy manager. So, and then having to deal with the issues about my status and about people's perception of what HIV was and everything else within my work environment. And still, again, get the stereotypes and the attitudes of people. But it made it a lot easier for me to challenge it. So, and it's made me quite a strong, outgoing and vocal person. And I think that's been the journey from within the charity. Coming into the charity as quite a quiet, timid kind of person, which wasn't really my nature, just that it'd been squashed and then been given voice and allowed to speak. And no matter what it was you speak about, it was about allowing you to feel free to be able to challenge, speak, and just discuss anything with that open heart and freedom, without being criticised, put down, or felt like it's unimportant. And that is what transpires when you do therapy with other people. It gives them the chance to speak and be free. In that time when you're with them, there's no judgments. And sometimes you get some people who try to shock you, and you just say, oh, really? Okay, and you carry on. And then I think that's why people come into the charity a lot more as well. And I've seen a lot of changes in the charity from having 3 people in the charity, and then a couple of people in the charity who were volunteers and coming in and doing unpaid work, to where we are now. And that journey has been a beautiful journey to watch that and stand back while allowing other people to take over and bring their skills in, better skills. And considering I had no skills when I first came in the same in respect of what they do now, kind of makes you proud, you know, to watch back and say that's a legacy. I've worked really hard on that, and other people have worked really hard on that. Some people we've lost, you know, but it's their memory that's helped us to get to this point as well. This is why we do the work. And time flies, it really does fly. It doesn't feel like 20 years. 16 years was like a blink of an eye in working in the charity.